Hello everybody and welcome to the F2 show by Inside F2. Joining me for the final episode of the season, we have an A-lister lineup today. Alex Brundle, Chris McCarthy and our very own Aaron Harper to join me to review the 2023 Formula 2 season. And chaps, how are we? Alex, we'll come to you first. We've just been speaking pre-show, haven't we? Yeah, keeping well, and this is the last thing before Christmas, right?
Yeah, very good. Looking back at a great year. Looking forward, hopefully, to another one. But mostly looking forward to a break. It must be said, it's been a pretty flat out year, both on track and in the com box. So it's nice to be charging towards Christmas.
Definitely. And Chris, same with you. Looking forward to a well-deserved break over Christmas.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on. It's been a fantastic season. Been great to be a part of Formula 2 and, of course, Formula 3 as well. But really enjoyed being part of it. And like Alex, looking forward to a bit of a break, like I'm sure you all are.
Are you looking forward to a break from each other? You've obviously done a little bit of commentary with Formula 3.
Surely not that. No, you can't have a break. You can't have a break from McCarthy. There is no such thing. Why would anybody desire such a thing? No, mostly. I mean, it's just been pretty flat out with keeping up with as we kind of both have with all three series, and that's a lot of race car drivers to be across. And I know Chris does a tremendous work as well in Formula Regional, so I bet he's got even more race car drivers to keep his head around.
Yeah, well, there's always a lot. Who's going where, isn't it? 2 more came in today, so it's just trying to keep on top of. They don't really give you a break. There's only a few days before Christmas, and they're announcing what they're doing next year. So, hopefully they give us a break from that soon.
It's relentless, isn't it? They don't give the media any kind of time off, do they? So, Aaron, ready to talk about the Formula 2 season of 2023 for the last time. I know we've spoken about it a lot this season, but ready to get into it.
Yeah, it's been a great season to sort of get our teeth into, and obviously our predictions didn't quite come true. Well, yours did, mine didn't, nor did Lawrence's. I've managed to graduate to the season finale, having got all the predictions terribly wrong in the season preview. So, let's get stuck into it.
Yeah, let's do it then. We're going to talk about the championship battles, some other stories from up and down the grid. And we also have a giveaway as well, our last giveaway of the season, and it's a really good one as well for the last one of the season. So make sure you stick around for that. But yeah, let's talk about the year as a whole then. Statistically, the most competitive Formula 2 season we've ever had. 13 different winning drivers, 10 different winning teams out of 11, which still blows my mind a little bit. And a title battle that went all the way down to the very last round of the season. Was this, potentially one of the great seasons in Formula 2, Alex? How do you reflect on this season?
I think it was. I mean, you've got an 11-point swing eventually, taking the victory for Théo Pourchaire. We saw great racing, and specifically, that digestible great racing, which is over the lead of the race and the front of the championship, which is great for us because it takes very little explaining, doesn't it? Which of these two drivers is going to win this one is a lot easier sell than actually this 6th place position finish is really important for Roman Stanek because and so on. So I think from track side it looked every bit as exciting as the statistics bear out. And when you look at the depth of talent, you've got to remember Ayumu Iwasa was in the championship hunt as well for a long time in the season. So it had great strength. I think returning drivers battling really helps because you get a sense of them, their strengths and weaknesses and their interests, and you get invested in them as people as well. And also the depth of the field has marked it out really as a great season of Formula 2. But there have been many great seasons.
Definitely. Chris, echo those thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. There's been some great moments all the way through, hasn't there? We had the fantastic performances at Baku, which was a really good one to watch. The drama we had at Zandvoort as well, which I think was highlighted how this was just a really unpredictable season, to be honest, which was part of why I think we had such a close battle on both parts. But there were so many moments like that, which I think made this great stories which came from that as well. New drivers onto the podium, and overall, we did have a lot of drivers get onto the podium in general. You mentioned about stats there, and I think so many great stories to take away from it, not just from the very top of the championship, but up and down it as well, which I think was fantastic. And I think we're set up very nicely for next season as well, as we always are. He had some really good new faces coming in, which will set up for a good battle next season, I think.
We definitely are. We're going to talk about that shortly, because there's a lot to look forward to for next season. But yeah, let's talk about this season. Théo Pourchaire obviously won the title, having only won one race all season long. Consistency clearly won in the title this season, didn't it? How impressive was this season for you, Alex? And do you think he was holding back a little bit of his raw pace a little bit at times to, sacrificing that pace for consistency?
I think that, he was definitely going for it throughout the year. He's mentioned after the season that he was trying to balance consistency, and really that, the title was the only thing that was going to work for him. And I could see why. You're talking about a driver there who first drove a Formula 2 car. It wasn't a full season, but first drove a Formula 2 car back in 2020. So he's done a fair amount of miles in that chassis now. And it was really going to be a big problem if he didn't win the championship this year. What he hasn't done is, the Hamilton Piastri turned up, won it and walked off. So that is potentially less impressive than rocking up as a rookie, winning the championship and carrying on. But I think what'll really save Théo in terms of his bid for Formula One are two things. Firstly, the connections he has up into Sauber, everything a little bit in flux there at the moment, which could generate an opportunity for him, clearly not next year, but beyond. And also, I think his personality will really help. He is an exciting driver. People warm to him. And at the next level, as much as it might not jump to mind as something that necessarily should matter, I think it really does. And I think that he on the sidelines next year will have a great impact, perhaps a better impact than a slightly more sort of low-key personality would have, which will really benefit him. But yeah, it's always impressive to win the Formula 2 championship. He's potentially taken a little bit too long over it, though.
It's really interesting, isn't it? Because, the youngest driver to win a Formula 2 race, obviously. He came in, made an impression, won the start of last season as well, didn't he? First race in 2022, and just didn't really push on, did he? So where does this season, his championship winning season, Chris, where does that rank for you? Obviously, Charles Leclerc, George Russell, Nick De Vries, Mick Schumacher, Oscar Piastri, Felipe Drugovich. Where does Théo Pourchaire's season rank for you?
Well, I think, like Alex said, he didn't quite turn up and win it straight away. So it might not rank as highly as some of the others in that sense, but he did hold off what was quite a strong charge from Frederick Vesty as well. I think the interesting part from it was that he did, similar to Gabriel Bortoletti in Formula 3, he won at the first round, and then he didn't really need to win after that, to be honest, which I think shows how valuable feature race wins are in this championship, and winning early on is as well. It basically put the pressure on and then said, "Come and catch me," and then he was just very consistent from there. So I think that consistency really paid off. And I think the impressive part is that I remember him being interviewed in pre-season testing, and everyone was kind of saying to him, you have to win this, in other words, and he went and did. So with a lot of pressure on his shoulders, he went out there and won the championship where everyone expected him to, and I think that goes a long way. So I don't know exactly where it ranks. It doesn't rank as highly as someone going in and winning it first time, but it shows under pressure he can go and win a championship.
He's going to be the third Formula 2 champion in a row not to be in Formula 1 the following season. Alex, I can see you pulling a face there. Aaron, we've spoken about this throughout the season, haven't we? What kind of precedence does that set for the Formula 2 championship?
Ultimately, it doesn't set a very good precedent, does it? Because if you're winning the series that is supposed to prepare you for Formula 1 and you're showing essentially, I've won the championship, I'm ready to be on the Formula 1 grid, but there's no room at the inn, where do you go? Now you're going to start losing talent to other series. Formula E are sort of picking drivers off the Formula 2 grid. IndyCar is becoming a more appealing proposition. There's always the World Endurance Championship. There's all sorts of other series now that are around. Formula One isn't, it says it's the pinnacle of motorsport, but I think drivers are getting to a point in their career where they go, actually, I need to sort of look at my other options, and they start moving away from that Formula One dream. Certain drivers like Jack Doohan are sort of hanging on to that, and if you can get yourself aligned with a F1 team, you've got more prospects, but it's still very difficult. It's not helped by some of these aging superstars like Fernando Alonso and Lewis Hamilton still having top-line seats, but also showing that they're still fully deserving of them. Whereas 10 years ago, drivers would be retiring in their mid-30s, late 30s, and opening up spaces on the grid for the next generation to come through. It's just not happening now. So drivers are being forced to be a bit more creative with the way they build their careers, I think. And Formula 2 is still an important cog in that, but it's not becoming that launch pad into Formula 1. Even Oscar Piastri, with the amazing season that he had to spend a year on the sidelines because Alpine had no space for him. Eventually he found a home at McLaren and has shown he was absolutely ready. But it just adds fuel to the fire of we need more teams on the F1 grid to allow this talent to come through and then thrive.
Kevin and chaps, your thoughts on the bottleneck that's going on? Alex, we'll come to you first. It's difficult, isn't it? Because obviously there are some really talented drivers on the Formula One grid, and they're not going to voluntarily give up their race seats, are they? But it is frustrating, isn't it, for young drivers?
There are a couple of factors here, some of which Aaron correctly raises. We're in a quite physical but not extremely physical era of Formula One because of the degradation of the tyre, and the way that the races operate. We're also in an extremely experience critical era of Formula One because of the complexity of the cars, the specificity of the way that you have to drive them and manage the tyre and push on. So the problem is that the bias of the product, because of the nature of how the product is put together, encapsulating hybrid power trains and also Pirelli tyres with strong degradation to generate the show, DRS, energy management, etc. Biases towards drivers who are more experienced at handling those factors, and naturally rookies. If you look at talented rookies coming in, Logan Sargent, and even the early phase of the year of Oscar Piastri's campaign, who I believe is an exceptional talent behind the wheel of a racing car. You can see how much experience is worth. I do wonder if it's worth a change to the structure of the way that we view feeder series and consider it, much more. Because at the moment, you take a run up at the door, don't you? I watched Takeshi's Castle the other day, and I thought it's a little bit like getting to Formula One, isn't it? You take a run up at the door. Some of the doors are paper, and some of the doors are solid, and it doesn't seem to matter, how fast you run. If there's a gap, there's a gap. And I think that maybe they need a bit more of a sort of a holding pattern series, which I guess is kind of what Red Bull are using Super Formula as in many ways. A bit more of a holding pattern structure where drivers can stay for a couple of years, cumulatively prove their worth, and then move through. At the moment, that's cost and the structure of the series as they escalate in that sort of road to F1 style are prohibitive on that. So it's an interesting thing to consider.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. My next question was going to be what's the solution, but you've kind of answered that there in that Super Formula are going to utilise other categories. I don't know if Super Formula would want to be labelled as a Formula 1.5, but that's essentially where we're. Yeah,
I've seen quicker times than Formula One in winter testing round Suzuka because of the tyre war there. So it's a pretty impressive series. But again, it's a different culture of motorsport. Japan, fantastic culture of motorsport. They trust their drivers. They keep them for a long time. And it's a career rather than a one and done shot.
Definitely. I'm really looking forward to seeing the Super Formula champion in Formula 2 next season. That's definitely something for us to look forward to. But let's talk about Frederick Vesty. He obviously pushed Théo Pourchaire all the way for the title in 2023 even. 6 wins, Chris. It was a really solid season from him. Was you expecting him to be just as good as he was? I think, a lot of people weren't necessarily tipping him for the title or a title challenge, were they?
Frederick Vesty's always been very, very competitive in what he's done. Obviously, he didn't have the best of seasons last year. Maybe it was down to the relationship he had with the team. I don't know. It just didn't really work out for him. But then he went back to Prer, who he raced with in the past, and just gelled with them really, really well. Of course, he had that pretty bad luck at Zandvoort, which definitely upset his season a little bit when you look back on it now. A really unfortunate moment in the season for him. And there was other points as well where he had the moment at Spa as well, coming down the Camel Straight, where he spun, I think it was, on the coming out the pits before the race started. So there was 2 moments there, unfortunately. But other than that, very, very good season. He'll look back on those as maybe ones that might have cost him the title, but he put in a really good performance, and Mercedes only had good things to say for him. He could have definitely won the title, but I think overall he did enough to impress Mercedes, and I think I'll be interested to see what they do with him next. Now I think we'll definitely see him doing some more practice sessions next year. But very, very impressive, and I was one person that definitely saw him getting some race wins this season, given his track record in the past.
He's going to be by Toto's side, isn't he? He's going to be experiencing firsthand the fist of Toto Wolff sometimes, I think
one of those, yeah.
Good stuff. All right, and the other thing that's kind of kept us on our toes all season long, Aaron, and kept us watching is the battle between Prer and ART, hasn't it? It's been so tight all season long. Obviously, ART just pinching it at the end of the season. Yeah, what was the difference between the two teams over the course of the season?
Apart from the obvious of a few points, it was just those small margins, wasn't it? It was literally those moments where Vesty's wheels literally came off, or he dropped the car on the way to the grid in Spa. Ollie Bearman had a few mishaps along the way, but also ART had drop points with Victor Martins. He struggled to find that consistency early on in the season. But within the teams, you had this fascinating duel, sort of driver versus driver within the two teams. So Vesty and Pourchaire both going for the championship, and then Bearman and Martins both going for best rookie. And those individual battles kind of shaped the way that the team's championship sort of played out in the end. And ART worthy champions, but by the same token, Prer would have been worthy champions as well. And welcome back, Prer. They were a bit anonymous last season, so they've become accustomed to dominating junior series. It was good to see them back at the front, and the pairing they've got next year, I wouldn't be surprised if they won almost every single race. So watch this space with Prer. ART will need to find a lot to stop them walking away with next year's championship.
Yeah, definitely. It's exciting next season, and the Prer lineup is maybe one of the most exciting junior series lineups we've had in years, isn't it? Two standout rookies, as you said, Victor. I couldn't believe, by the way, first time ART have won the team's title in the modern era of Formula 2. That's something we spoke about in our Abu Dhabi review, isn't it, Aaron? I couldn't believe that. But yeah, two standout rookies then: Victor Martins, Ollie Bearman. Obviously, 1 win for Victor Martins, but 10 podiums over the course of the season. Pretty incredible record. And 4 wins for Ollie Bearman, but only 6 podiums. Who impressed you the most out of those two drivers, Alex? And who do you think going into next season is the one with the target on their back, if you like?
That's a really interesting question. Martins is great. I've loved watching him ever since the Formula 3 days. I really rate him. I like the way he goes about his racing. It's often measured and calculated, but with sort of passion and speed as well. Bearman has got that kind of raw talent vibe to him. Just sort of extreme speed, jumped in a Haas and did an incredible job in the couple of FP1s that he drove as well. I think if I'm sitting there as an F1 team boss, and knowing the pinnacle of speed that's required. And it's something that's easy to forget when you look at the world of Formula One, because, you know, you're operating at a plateau which is a peak of every other series, if you like. So, you know, championship winning level of a world endurance championship or an IndyCar series, battling over 17th in two Formula One cars. I'd be looking at Behrman, purely because I think that he has the edge and the pure speed that you need. And then, a confident team are going to be thinking that they can shape him. The Ferrari Academy are obviously thinking that they can shape him based around that pure speed into the complete racing driver he needs to be. And, even those working with him throughout this year have said he's become much more of a complete racing driver than he was previously. So, yeah, Behrman would be my pick.
Alex, just jumping in on Ollie Behrman, obviously his development would have been helped by the weird experience of driving with a wonky steering wheel in Baku and still taking pole position. So from a driver's perspective, just talk us through, so when your steering wheel in a racing car, in a single-seater, isn't straight, like how does that affect like your mindset and the way you execute, if at all?
Yeah, that's utterly bizarre. So I think he bent a steering arm, which would, I mean, I've seen it a couple of times throughout my career. Mechanics throw their arms up in the air and go, why do we bother spending hours flat patching this car? And then you've just set the fastest lap with no front wing on it. What is the point? and it's one of those moments, isn't it? But and that's kind of what I mean, where, and Verstappen used to do this in an F3 car, old F3 car, big downforce, Dallara F318 spec, where they've got a talent and ability to throw and muscle the car around, which sort of transcends the finite detail of understeer, oversteer, so on. There's a confidence, an overarching confidence and feel for the car, which means that they are just operating on a level of attack which is above just ploughing a bit through three. They're making it work. And I think that's what Behrman's doing there. And so that's how he's able to do things like that, where other drivers would just go, whoa, that's not going to turn in, is it? He's, flat out. That can come with a little bit of red mist, and I think we've seen that as well from Ollie through the year.
Is he the favourite for next season then, Alex, do you think?
I think so, yeah. Yeah, I think so. Given, continuity, everything else, I think he's got to be a clear favourite moving into next season. I'm interested to see what Antonelli can do, because the testing form is outrageous. But then testing's testing in these series, and you can put it in the bin a little bit, in my experience.
Chris, I know we've spoken about Antonelli, haven't we? And really excited. Not to speak about 2024 too much, but really exciting and to see those two alongside each other. It's going to be a season-long battle that was it's going to be brilliant, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it's just exciting that we're going to have the champions from Formula 3, Super Formula and Formula Regional kind of all on track together. I think that's got to be a first, isn't it? So I'm very excited. And what I've obviously seen of Antonelli this year, I'd say he's quite an incredible talent. And I wasn't surprised to see that he'd made the jump straight to Formula 2. He put in some absolute outstanding performances. I think he won. We had a race at Zandvoort where we had a safety car in the rain, and he won by about 13 seconds, and that won him the title. And that's it's one of those where you can see, when he does make it to F1, that will be one they look back on when they're sort of reflecting on how his journey to the seat kind of thing. So, but yeah, I think the favourite. I agree with Alex. Definitely Ollie Behrman. It's that drive at Baku was, I remember watching it live. It was just, it was an outstanding drive. So, and that's another one I think that will be looked back on in years to come as one of the best performances in a weekend. What was he? He was 1 point off, wasn't he? The max score. So, one fastest lap point away. So, but I think that's one that will be looked back on as one of the best ever performances in a Formula 2 weekend. in years. So I really look forward to seeing him versus Victor Martins, and then we've got two new drivers coming in, one from Formula 3 and one from Formula Regional, joining them in their team. So we're going to have two inter-team rivalries and then kind of two heads-to-heads as well. So let alone all the other drivers coming in. So those two teams alone are going to be exciting to watch.
Definitely. I love the fact that, it's just motorsport in general, isn't it? We literally only just finished the 2023 season and already we're talking about the 2024 season. We've still got a couple of months of off time, haven't we? So let's go back to the 2023 season. Jack Doohan, maybe a slightly disappointing season for him. Obviously, he would have hoped to have, it would have been his championship winning year. But Alex, if you look at if the season started in Austria, Jack Doohan would have scored 126 points, Victor Martins 105, Teo Pourchaire 104, Vesty 82 points. He would have been the champion had the season started at the halfway point. What do you think went wrong for him in the first half of the season? And do you think he'll look back and have regrets in his Formula 2 campaign?
Yeah, I'm just looking at his season now, actually. All three of those wins towards the end of the year, feature race wins where he took pole positions as well. I don't know what happened at the start of the year, and I don't think we had him a couple of times on F1 TV and stood talking to him off air, and I'm not sure he really does either. He just sort of took a moment to get his head around the car. It was quite a lot different from the previous year. The way that they'd set it up, I think they kind of led themselves a bit astray trying to make developments in testing. Perhaps a bit of the pressure of it being, because I called him as my favourite for the championship unashamedly before the year began. Him and another driver who perhaps had a bit of a disappointing year, Enzo Fittipaldi. And I really thought he'd smash it. And then actually it was almost as the championship opportunity fully faded that he really came on strong, Jack. And I wonder if that was really what was at play for him, a bit of sort of, nervous energy costing him performance. He can clearly do it. Still got the connection with Alpine, has been behind the wheel of multiple Formula One cars now, both in their historic testing program around those regulations and also on Grand Prix weekend. So he's still in the hunt. It's going to be interesting watching his progress then through later years. But what I think the problem that Jack's got now is he marked himself out of being in that group of drivers who turn up, win, and carry on. He's hovered, and as brutal as this sounds and as uncompromising as this sounds for a driver of the level of talent that Jack Doohan has, the level that you have to hit to be jumping as Oscar Piastri has, as Lewis has, as Lando has, into manufacturer and high-level Formula One seats and having a shot at titles in maybe year 2, year 3 of your Formula One career, is that turn up, win, disappear level, and that's where the falter has slightly happened now.
It's absolutely brutal, isn't it? That Teo Pourchaire 5th, 2nd, 1st, right, across his 3 seasons in Formula 2. Jack Doohan, I'm just looking at it now, 6th last season, and he goes to finish 3rd this season. That's not good enough. That's not good enough for Formula 1. It's absolutely brutal, isn't it, as you say? But by the way, did you two, Aaron and Alice, did you compare notes at the beginning of the season? Because Aaron, wasn't your prediction Jack Doohan to win the title and Enzo Fittipaldi to be the driver to watch? Yeah,
something like that.
Good stuff. All right, guys. Obviously, we haven't got time to talk about every single driver, but I just wanted a standout driver that perhaps went under the radar a little bit, and maybe a team or a driver that might look back on this season and think, maybe could have done a little bit better there. Aaron, can I start with you on that one? First of all, who went under the radar for you a little bit?
I think Richard Verschoor had a really fantastic season. Obviously, he's just been announced as a Trident driver again today on the day of recording this, but P9 in the Drivers' Championship with VAR got their first ever win. That drive at the Red Bull Ring was just sensational. It was a fantastic race to watch. And I spoke afterwards on social media about the commentary on that one. It was Alex Jakes and Alice Powell doing that, and they did a fantastic job calling that. Alex and Chris, you'll know from experience how difficult it is to call the action when it's just that exciting, that frantic, and to keep everyone abreast of what's going on. But they did a fantastic job in actually, for a viewer, being able to transmit the excitement, but keep you sort of within that understanding of what's actually going on in the general picture. It was really well shaped. And obviously for Richard that weekend, it was after the tragic loss of Delano a few days earlier. So it meant a great deal to him. It was a real moment for him. And yeah, he had a really sort of good season, but it was kind of overshadowed by everybody else ahead of him being mega and fantastic as well.
Good stuff. And someone who, might, a driver or a team who might look back and think, I wish I could have done a little bit more this season.
Arthur Leclerc for sure. I'm kind of guilty in like expecting him to be like Charles, and we know that's not always the case, but he's a quality driver in his own right, but this season just simply didn't come together for him. Obviously, referring to the Red Bull Ring again, he lost the wheel there, and we never saw that speed that he's shown in other categories. And I kind of thought he was matching Ollie Behrman in Formula 3, close to him. He'd be about that level, but it just didn't come together. Iwasa was able to get it together in the other dams. Leclerc just didn't seem to come together. I'm not sure what his future holds, whether he stays in F2 or if he moves on, but yeah, he'll want to sort of put that part of his career behind him and move on to more positive things.
Definitely. Chris, come to you first for a driver that perhaps went under the radar a little bit.
I'd probably go for Kushmani, actually. I thought he had a really good season, very consistent. Maybe it fell away from him in the middle, but he was putting Campos Racing in places. So did Ralph Boschung, right at the start of the year, but he was putting Campos Racing in places they hadn't been for a while or hadn't really been before. And his consistency has got him noticed. He's been picked up, by management, and it's kind of boosted his career, really. In Formula 3, he was always battling for, just to really get in the top 10, and he was getting on the podium. And I think he had a really good career. I don't think people would have seen that coming, him getting onto the podium, as much as he did, and being in the points as often as he was. So he's really boosted his career doing that, and I think Kushmani for me was one that maybe went under the radar a bit.
And a team that might look back and wish they'd done a little bit more.
I'd say in terms of a driver, Amaury Cordial. I think that's probably where Jack Doohan's season actually fell apart, to be honest. I think that's why we maybe saw him come on later. He had a really strong end last season, Amaury Cordial, and I thought that he was, along with Jack Doohan at Virtuosi, I thought they could have worked really well together, and that could have been a strong push to help Jack Doohan go and win the title, but we just never really saw him. I'm just looking now. He got in the points right at the end of the season, a couple of 8th places, but I think that's maybe why Jack Doohan took so long to get going this season. Amaury Cordial just really struggled for pace, and I think as a team, that maybe, I don't know what happened there. I don't know if it was just that they didn't really gel well together, but I think that really did hurt them.
Definitely. Virtuosi with, or Invicta as they're now going to be called. We're going to have a really strong lineup next season with Bortoleto and Kushmani. So, hopefully a starter a bit stronger than they did this season. Alex, one of each from you, please, if that's all right.
I wonder if that's because they're annoyed about us not calling them Invicta Virtuosi. So they've decided to get rid of the Virtuosi, so we have to call them Invicta. I suspect as much. I would mirror Vachor. I think Vachor did a really good job through this year. He smacks of a driver who has to work really hard in the off-season to get the money together, just with the trajectory of teams, just reading between the lines, with the trajectory of teams that I've seen him move with. He kind of had his momentum, hit the series, and is now trying to keep it going and is using that experience to keep himself in the hunt, which I think is a really tough thing to do at that level, and putting that Van Amersfoort car, winning races in that Van Amersfoort car is very impressive. The driver I really thought I'd see more from is Stanek, actually. stellar Formula 3 season, race winner, podium finisher in a Formula 3 car. I know he's, jumping into a Formula 2 car, but even still, I kind of thought, it's savage Formula 3, 30 drivers. It's tough weekend in, weekend out, but a lot of the racetracks, and you get a feel for it. Some drivers just don't take to the power in the way other drivers do, and I think maybe Roman Stanek's one of those. He just didn't have the season that I was expecting from him. I have him in my brain as a sort of upper midfielder, and he wasn't this year, which was interesting.
Yeah, some really good picks there, some really interesting ones. I'm just having a look myself, and I think I'm actually going to go with biggest or driver who I think probably didn't get enough of a shout was Jack Crawford, who beat Isaac Hadjar, the highly rated Isaac Hadjar, over the course of a season in the same machinery, and got a win there as well. So I think Jack Crawford had a quietly good season, and I think I'm going to go for a team in terms of, and I say this with the utmost respect because they're constantly winning races every single season, but Carlin only had one race win all season this season, so maybe a slightly underwhelming season from them, but they will be back next year with a very interesting lineup ahead of next season. But yeah, guys, I think that's all we got time for today and all we got time for this season as well. So honestly, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart and everyone at Inside F2 for all of your incredible support this year. Over 50,000 new subscribers, which blows my mind, across all platforms this season. So thank you so much for listening to our absolute waffle at most points throughout the season. Shameless plug, if you do enjoy the podcast, make sure you give it a like, give us a 5-star review if you can. That would be hugely appreciated, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. It really, really does help us. So please go and do those things if you haven't done so already, and we'll continue to work hard to bring you the best Formula 2 content we can over the winter break and into next season. But from me, Fraser Ford, and all of us here at Inside F2, we'll see you next time.